Good morning, great Biafrans. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you're listening to us from. You are welcome to Biafra Radio. My name is Kimiowei, Tari, Nemi, and you are welcome to this platform. We are live right now. We are live on Biafra Radio page on Facebook, Biafra Radio page on Twitter, Biafra Radio page on YouTube. We are live on Alpha Power Media. We are live on different platforms. We are also live on the Biafra Radio app. So you can listen to us from any of these platforms and continue. Please make sure you download the Biafra Radio app. It is easier to listen from that platform because when you do, you will save some of your data. You will save your data when you listen from Biafra Radio app. Okay, because it is easier to listen from Biafra Radio app than to listen from the social media platforms. Okay, but we are live on all of these, depending on which one is comfortable, which one is okay for you. You can listen to us. You can listen through Alpha Power Media on Facebook. You can listen to IPOB UK Media on Facebook. So we must continue. We must pray as it is our custom. It is our culture to pray. We must recognize the presence of the Creator in everything that we do. Elohim, Abba Father in heaven, Samara, Ogonomokiri Motomedao, the ruler of heaven and earth, the one who made the skies, the one who made the heavens, the stars and all planetary bodies, the one who made all the wonders that we see, that we study each day and we keep studying. We worship you, for there is no one else like you, for you were God all by yourself, without any assistance and without any vice. We thank you for all that you've been doing in our lives, for all that you've been doing amongst our people. We thank you for the enlightenment that is going on across the whole of Africa. We thank you for how you're showing yourself strong and defeating the enemies of mankind. Lord, we pray that this move that I've started shall never go down, that this fire that has been kindled shall never be extinguished. Lord, we pray that as more men are awakened, that they shall awaken others. As their candles are lit, so should they light the candles of others. Let this gospel of freedom, let it continue to spread and spread and spread until the continent of Africa is consumed with the knowledge of self-awareness and with the knowledge of freedom, with the knowledge of histories of the past, with the knowledge of present reality, and with knowledge of how to plan for the future and for generations to come. Lord, we pray for the land of Biafra, the holy land of Biafra. We pray that your people remain in peace, that your people remain intact, that they do not waver in faith, that they do not doubt your strength. We pray for the prophet that you have given to us, for the man that you have called. We pray for Mazi and the Kanu. We pray that you keep him, irrespective of the torture, emotional torture, and all forms of torture that he faces because of the mission that you called him for. Lord, we pray that you keep him strong, and in due time let him be released to us, so that this mission that you have given to us will be completed in our time and in our generation. I pray for all of our people, all lovers of freedom, both Biafrans in all of Africa and the rest of the world, for all men that seek freedom for herself, freedom for her people, freedom for her nation, freedom for her continent. Lord, we ask that these ones be strong and strengthened in heart, and be strong and strengthened in knowledge, in wisdom, on how to go about this, on how to achieve the freedom. We pray, oh Lord, that they are strong and strengthened financially to support the ideas that you have given to them in their heads and in their hearts. Lord, we pray for every Biafran and for all those that truly seek freedom, that they do not drag feet, that they do not slack behind, that they are not consumed with distractions and with things that do not matter. We have no one else to run to. Our enemies are strong and powerful. They have all the money and they control the world. But our faith is in you, O Tamara. In you alone we believe, in you alone we trust, in you alone we have hope. And that is why we continue. Thank you, our Father. Tamara Mbana. Ayiba Mbana. Nanawe Mbana. All this we pray in the name of Tamara. Chukokika Abiyama. Abasi. Elohim. He say, more power. We must continue. I must apologize for starting up late. The time for this program was supposed to be 2 p.m. Biafran time. I must apologize for starting almost about 30 minutes afterwards. There were some things that delayed my starting of the program, and this will not happen again. I will not allow it to happen again. We must continue. The time right now in Biafra land is 2:41 p.m. And I will advise that you share this message as much as you can. Share this broadcast to as much people as you can. Ensure people hear the truth. Because what is more important is that the truth is spoken. Because what is more important is that we share and we hear and we share the truth. Because without the truth, we cannot have freedom. For the enemies to keep us in bondage, the enemies must spread lies about us. The enemies must blackmail us to keep us in bondage. But if we do not stop saying the truth and preaching the truth, then the enemy will be powerless. If we do not stop spreading the gospel of the truth, spreading the gospel of freedom, exposing the wiles of the enemy, exposing the evil that is going on in our land, provided we do not stop, the enemy will be able to do nothing. At the end of the day, the enemy will succumb. When you see a people determined to have freedom, freedom from oppressors, the oppressor can have all the powers in the world. The man that needs freedom, all he should have is the will to continue, even at the cost of your life. Even at the cost of your life. The will to continue. Today we shall be talking about something I titled Biafra as a significant ingredient in Africa's freedom. Biafra as a significant ingredient in Africa's freedom. You must realize that if you watch the events and how things have been playing out in Africa, there is one thing that you will observe. Whenever Biafra goes down, in spirit and in morality, Africa goes down. Whenever Biafra begins to rise up, to stand up for what is right, Africa will pick up. The light is in Biafra land. The light is in Biafra land. You can see how much the Enlightenment has spread all over Africa. And this is just the beginning. We have only just started. This is just the beginning. Now I'll be taking you through Africa's relationship with the West that enslaved us from way back hundreds of years before now. Because I want us to understand the role of Biafra and how this movement for the restoration of Biafra has a strong role to play in Africa's general freedom right now, in all the movements that are going on in Africa. Biafra, maybe not directly, but you understand how much it aligns. Now, there is before the white men came, the relationship with Africa was more or less, you can call it the trans-Sahara trade relationship, because international relationship is all about trade. What do I need from you? What do you need from me? Okay, I need this. Okay, then you must pay this. So there was a time that all that could be done through trade by barter. Got to a time when it was by gold. Then when Europeans started changing things, gold now changed to dollar, which is what the Europeans only control, or the West, or the white folks, depending on how you want to put it. So Africa, during the trans-Sahara trade, that was a time that you see powerful kingdoms. Now, I'm not talking about most ancient times. I'm talking about old times, but not so ancient, like about 500 years, 700 years ago. That is the trans-Sahara trade era in Africa. During that period of trans-Sahara trade, that was where you had powerful kingdoms like the Kingdom of Ghana, which was practically, whose capital was practically in around the Senegal area. Around that area, I'm not so sure, but somewhere around Senegal and her neighbors. Okay, then you have the Kingdom of Mali that came later on. It was there, but it wasn't the foremost power when the Kingdom of Ghana was the foremost power, or you can as well call it the Empire of Ghana. Okay, so as at then, you had these in West Africa. You had the Ethiopia in East Africa, and they were all doing their businesses and doing very well, relating with the West, and all they were doing fine. And that was why you had Mali, the king of Mali, to be recognized then as the richest man in the world. So his kingdom, Mali, was more or less the richest kingdom in the world, because the way he spent in gold. There was no other country in the world as at then that could spend that much and still survive. A king that went to Mecca and he was able to spend that much, giving everybody gold, sharing gold as if it was just mere stones. And the kingdom still thrived. That is Africa. That was how rich and powerful and influential Africa was during the Trans-Sahara trade period. As at then, Europeans could only come to Africa through the Morocco border, and Arabs could come to Africa through Egypt and the other countries bordering the Arabs. Then the Indians also could come to do business in Africa through the territories of the Arabs and all that, through those trade routes. Those were marked out trade routes that they were using to come here and patronize our natural resources, buy our natural resources from us. It has always been them coming here to buy things. Most of the time, it has always been the rest of the world coming to Africa to get these things. So these kingdoms that were just at the mouth of the Sahara, these kingdoms were very powerful because they were the only ones that could come down to sub-Saharan Africa, because they were just at the mouth of the Sahara. So they could come down to sub-Saharan Africa and get these natural resources from the local people, okay? Get these natural resources from the local people that Europeans want and the rest of Asia that wanted, and sell to them, okay? So they were very powerful, and everybody was fine with it. Everybody was fine. Everybody was at peace. Our people were at peace. We're all doing well. As at then, you had Africa to Africa trade. Those ones at the mouth of the Sahara were most likely the ones doing the, will I call it the intercontinental trade. They were the ones trading with people with the Europeans. They were the ones trading with the Arabs and the rest of Asia, because those ones cannot go through them to come to sub-Saharan Africa. So if there are any natural resources that they need in sub-Saharan Africa, the Kingdom of Ghana, that's when it was powerful, were the ones doing that, or the Kingdom of Mali, or the other empire that was also in West Africa, that was whose capital was Timbuktu. Okay, so all these nations were strong, and the nations that they were buying from the people, they were buying from the tribes and people that they were getting these things from. They were not getting it by force. They were not forcing people to get them. They were not getting these things by force. It was trade, normal trade. They were trading with the people. They would go to their lands and trade with them. They were not ruling everywhere, okay? But they would go to those places and trade with them. They will go as far as Benin, Biafra land, and down into Africa, because it is their continent. There were no borders then, so they trade with the people and they get these things and trade beyond. So it got to a point where Europeans started having the desire to go across the world, most especially when they wanted to go to India. They started going to the Americas, discovered America. They started building mighty ships that will enable them to be able to cross the Atlantic. That was how Europeans started coming down to the shores of West Africa. It wasn't like Europeans weren't relating to West Africans, but then their relationship with West Africa was practically at the borders of the Sahara. So they related directly with the nations at the borders of the Sahara. So when they were able to build mighty ships that enabled them to go across the ocean, because then it wasn't easy for you to build ships that could cross an ocean. You know, when the tides close to the continent, it's not the same when you get to the middle of the ocean. So if your ships are not big and strong enough, when you get to the middle of the ocean, then you might capsize and everybody would die. So in order for them to go to India, they had to begin to start building such mighty ships. That was where they discovered the continent of America. They discovered it for Europe, not that the continent of America wasn't known by other people, because Africans had been there before the Europeans got there. Okay? Africans have been there. Some other Europeans have been there some time before then. Okay? Some other Europeans have been there, have been in the Americas as well. Some other Asians have been there, and Africans have been there as well. But Europe did not know America per se. It wasn't known by all of Europe, so they didn't know that continent, and most people didn't know that continent. So it was when they were able to do this that they discovered the continent of America, when they tried to navigate their way to India because they were looking for pepper. And they couldn't go through Greece, which would take them through the Arab nations and all that, because that was the way they were getting pepper. I know I have thought about this on Radio Biafra before. If you're somebody that have been following me, you would have gotten this lecture a long time ago. But for the purpose of today's lecture, I will take it again. So they had to go, they couldn't go through that because those people had to protect that relationship so that they can continue making their money from Western Europe. So Western Europe had to look for other means to get pepper because it was a huge commodity for them. So when they were able to develop that and they go to the Americas, it made them to know that, oh, now we can go to sub-Saharan Africa by ourselves, okay, and get those raw materials by ourselves directly. And when they started coming down, and that was where the Trans-Sahara trade, the era of Trans-Sahara trade died. Okay, the era of Trans-Sahara trade died when the Europeans started looking out for doing business directly with people at the shores of West Africa, at the shores of the Atlantic Ocean in West Africa, in Central Africa, and in Southern Africa. And they kept on discovering new resources and all. And as at then, that was the same time, like I told you, they discovered the Americas, and they also went to America and laid claim to America, killed people there, took their lands, and also they needed the America to develop. They don't have enough population to develop the Americas. They needed slaves to help them develop the Americas, and that was why initially they started buying or started taking the local Americans for slaves, but discovering they were not physically strong enough to be doing those hard labor that they were giving to them, they had to resort to Africa. So, and all that happened, they came discovering that, oh, when they started coming down to sub-Saharan Africa, they discovered that instead of buying these things from these people, we can actually take their lands and own the resources. We can colonize them and own the resources. Why keep buying from them when we have enough power militarily to take over their lands? As at then, all of Africa were just, everybody was thinking for themselves. I am me, you are you. We're all different. At a particular time, Europeans were also like that. It was Europeans united themselves against primarily Africa and the rest of the world when they were able to express their strength. When they were able to express their strength, taking over the Americas and Australia, they began to say that they can actually take over the whole world, which they did. So they had to unite in 1884, the Berlin Conference, and say, okay, we don't need to fight ourselves because we want to take over the lands and properties of others. So they united in 1884, partial unity though, and that unity was tested through the two world wars, because the so-called world wars were actually European wars. It became world war because the Europeans were directly ruling the rest of the world. So the First and the Second World War was European wars fighting themselves because of resources that does not belong to them. Resources of other people that they were supposed to be buying, but instead of buying, they wanted to lay claim and own it. Until date, they have owned our resources. Even after the Second World War, that our people thought that, okay, we can begin to have freedom. They only gave us freedom for local, even that is not entirely freedom. Local rule, okay, freedom to rule yourself, but they will still be interfering. So that was exactly what happened then. And after then, many the African people, according to the structures that the white man had already created, they started getting the freedom to rule those structures, and they were considering it freedom, and they were calling those structures their countries, okay, without restructuring the structure of the West. Now, many people talk about, in the zoo, many people talk about restructuring. The first restructuring we should be looking at is the restructuring of what foreigners did in our continent. We have to put back our structures together. They came and they restructured us. We had our own structures, natural structures. We had our own nations, natural nations. They came and they restructured us. So we have to restructure and go back to how we were before they came, not maintaining their boundaries and maintaining their systems of government, and you expect to have freedom. No, you cannot have freedom in that manner. What you have is freedom according to their dictates, which is still bondage. And that is why you see EU, France, and the rest of them, the United States, all of them are after Niger. And they want Nigeria to take that war to Niger. They want Nigeria to take the war to Niger. I'm mentioning Nigeria, of course it's ECOWAS, but we know if Nigeria is not going to war, there will be no war. There will be no war in Niger. So they want Nigeria to take the war to Niger because they know that Nigeria is their creation. Nigeria is a creation of the West. And all of these other countries, all the boundaries are actually the creation of the West. So how does Biafra come into this? How does Biafra come into this? What is how is Biafra significant? You must recognize that what all of Africa is going through is exactly what Biafra is going through. And that is why when we woke up, when we Biafrans woke up and we started questioning, we put ourselves together in indigenous people of Biafra, and we started questioning everything. We started questioning the West, questioning even the religions that are brought to our land. We started questioning everything we questioned, and started asking ourselves many questions. Other Africans started picking up. Why? What we are all suffering is economic strangulation of the West. What we are all suffering all over Africa, and what's made us Biafrans to rise up is economic strangulation. Now, some people will be wondering, how come Biafra land is so rich in oil? The wealth of Nigeria is actually Biafra's wealth. And Biafrans are all over the world looking for greener pastures. Meanwhile, the green pasture is in your land. Now, take the oil away. Biafrans are rich in other natural resources. Take the natural resources away. Biafrans are rich in the brain. So, why are we all over the world looking for greener pastures? And irrespective of the place that you go to, home is home. Where you're not at home, you will not be able to develop yourself and your people. You might be able to develop yourself, but that is at a limit, because you will be at the mercy of somebody somewhere. So after suffering economic strangulation, individual and collectively, we got to understand that we need our freedom. We need freedom of our land for us to break away from this economic strangulation. And that was why when we started preaching all that we're preaching, others started picking up the same message. Why? Every African country that you see today, every African contraption or country or whatever you call it, that you see today on the map of Africa, each and every one of them are suffering from economic strangulation by the West. They are all suffering from economic strangulation. South Africa fought for many years. Mandela was in prison for 27 years. And when he was released, the only thing that they could offer to them is just the same thing that they have given to the rest of the African countries, which is just political freedom. Till today, the Southern Africans are still crying for economic freedom. Now, for South Africa, it is easy to see that what they are suffering is strangulation, is economic strangulation. What they are suffering is that they did not have economic freedom. And they are able to see that because the white people that are being used against them are living in their land. They see them every day. But the white people outside only want to do business with the white people inside South Africa. The white people inside South Africa run the economy of South Africa with the support of the rest of Europe and America and the rest of the white folks all over the world. So they can see it. It is easy for them to understand that their problem is economic strangulation. But for the rest of Africa, it was a little bit difficult. When you complain of economic strangulation, they will tell you that you have leaders. So what are your leaders doing? Your leaders are not developing your land. Meanwhile, your leaders are handicapped. Your leaders are forcefully corrupt, or your supposed leaders are forcefully corrupt. Anyone that tries to have the guts to want to stand for the people, the person will either be disgraced out of office or the person will be killed. Worse is the way the French handle their former colonies. So What we have today is Western structure or European structured Africa with quote unquote with local rule all over Africa, but economic colonization all over Africa. What you have is economic colonization all over Africa. The West have colonized Africa economically. And that is why no matter how you shout, no matter how many people you kill, no matter how much you fight, your local politicians can never give you economic freedom because it is not in their hands. And that was where the so-called Niger Delta struggle or the resource control struggle in the coast of Biafra, that was where they failed. That struggle was powerful, was strong. It lasted for more than a decade, but it achieved absolutely nothing. Why? They were not hitting the nail at the head. That struggle was also after economic freedom. But they were still talking about we are Nigerians. They are still maintaining the same borders. We are Nigerians. What we need is this. What the people that are holding that are not in Abuja, but the people that are in Abuja are puppets of the people that are holding that freedom. And how are they settled? They are settled with corruption. Be free to do your corruption. No matter how much they shout, nobody will listen to them. If they pick up weapons against you, kill them, and nothing will happen. Nobody will speak for them. Nobody will speak in their defense. If they like, let them go to the UN, let them report it everywhere. Nobody will talk about it. We will sit on it, provided you do our will. And that is what is happening. So when we started calling for the freedom of Biafra, it became a problem for the West. Because the people calling for the freedom of Biafra, we are not calling for the West to now create another Nigeria for us, where they will begin to plant their own people to run us. Because there are certain people that, based on their culture, it is difficult for you to run them from outside. It's difficult. Based on their culture, based on the way they operate, it is difficult for you to run them from outside. You cannot. They have always known that with the culture and the system that operates in Biafra land, the way we think, you cannot run us from outside. Because the West might claim to be practicing democracy. Okay, that is for them. But what we had in Biafra land is much older than what the West have as democracy. The freedom of the people, the freedom of speech, where everyone has the right to speak. That is our culture. That is the way we are. No matter how powerful a man is, he cannot stop the others from speaking. In the assembly of elders, a young man can speak. He'll be allowed to speak, provided he's saying something reasonable and he's saying it respectfully. He'll be allowed to air his views. But such a thing was not done everywhere. And we had communal system in such a way that every man, every single individual contributes to the success of the community. Every single individual contributes. So how do you run such a system from outside? It's not possible. See, they have tried a lot to copy our system. In the Americas, they have situations where they will say that they are calling for town hall meetings. Their legislators will go to their
to their locality call. People will be contributing. People will be talking to them. It is a copy. It is a copy of what we had. It's a copy of what we had, because we were operating from communities. That is why we didn't have kings. And even in situations, even in areas where there were kings, the kings were not just making decisions without the contribution of the people. The chiefs, after hearing from their people, they will come to the assembly where the king is, and everybody will communicate. So when the king is making his decision and is giving his final verdict, the man that is in his farm, that is just a farmer, he can see, he can feel his contribution in the verdict of the king. So that is a system that we ran. I am talking about in those other places where there were even kings. In most places, there were no kings at all. It was just chiefs and elders. No kings at all. So in such a situation, and in a modern time like this, how do you run such a people from outside? And that is why we need our freedom. Because we need to continue to practice the way we've been practicing. See, we might have left this system for donkey years, but this system is embedded in our DNA. It is not something that you can remove. You cannot change it. A Biafran will always talk. A Biafran will always look for an opportunity to express himself. When you begin to see how you want to suppress people from expressing themselves, then you will not be able to control the system. Any system of any Biafran system, you must be open and give the people opportunity to express themselves. That is how we are. It is embedded in our DNA. That is who we are. That is just how we are. So they know it, and they know that they cannot allow such a people, because with such systems, it is not possible. It is not possible to deceive the people. It's not possible to deceive the people and maintain that deception for long, because we are one of the very few people in the world that traditionally never had a system of monarchy. Very, 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 very unique people in the world. We never had a system of monarchy, and we had peace. We're not warring against ourselves, even though we didn't have kings. We're not warring against ourselves. It's not like we didn't have greedy people, but all the greed were kept in check. It's not like we didn't have wicked people, but all the wickedness were kept in check. Why? We had our laws. Our laws were powerful. Nobody were going against the laws. Our system, our religious system was also powerful. It was part and parcel of our social systems. So these were systems, these are things that worked for us. Now, in these modern times of freedom of religion, we may not primarily bring in that religious system to work, but definitely when we get our freedom, we must find a way to work it out. Okay, we must find a way to work it out. So these are certain things that the colonizers saw, and they knew that the Biafran people cannot be allowed to be free if you must keep the rest of Africa. Because it is just one thing. If other Africans begin to see how some other people are making it work, how there are people somewhere that are making it work, they will learn. They will learn from that, because in all of these things, government is like science. Government is like science. You observe and see how you practice. You observe, you practice. Okay? Government and governance is like science. When you want to see a system that works is like machinery. You have to put all the systems together, put your machines together in order for you to achieve a particular result. The people that put up these systems that we are working with right now, they knew the end product of they knew what it to achieve. They knew that it would make Africans impoverished. They knew that it would make Africans to be beggarly people. They knew that it would make Africans to be weak. And all over Africa, unfortunately, it is still the systems created by the colonizers that the people are operating on. So you cannot do business amongst yourselves as Africans, but a white man from the United States can come and plant his, can come and do business in your country, carry your natural resources and go to his country, develop it, then bring back finished goods, sell to you. You will buy your own products from him. You buy your own product. Do not forget that you cannot compare the price of raw material with finished goods, because if you take a raw material of a particular quantity, by the time you're producing it into finished goods, that little quantity will be much larger than mixed up with other maybe inferior materials that they have gotten from some other places. It will be much larger than the one that they got from your land. So, and they will now put their cost and everything, because you don't have that also in your land and you need it. You will buy it from them. So at the end of the day, you are at a loss, because you are buying from them what they actually bought from you, which they bought at a very, very minimal cost, which is almost free. And they bought it with their own paper. They come to your land, take natural resources, they buy it with paper, with dollar, not with gold, as it was during the times of the Trans-Sahara trade that made Mali very, very rich. Not with gold, not with silver. If they were buying it with gold and silver, maybe it would have been good. But now they don't. They don't anymore. They don't buy it with gold and silver. Rather, they buy it with common paper. Paper that anybody can make. And they make that paper to be of a very high value. Everything is just in the mind. The control, the economic control that the West control people in Africa is just in the mind. So we must be able to be independent in our minds first. We must be independent in our minds before we can ever have economic independence. And what is happening right now is because this message that we are preaching, the whole of Africa realized that our problem is actually economic strangulation of the West. And that is why you will see that what is happening in Niger, the people have risen up. The people are now aware that, oh, we have all these resources. How can we still be poor? How? It's not right. So the people are ready to fight anything, to stand against anything. And this revolution, the revolution have kick-started because France has stood their grounds. They have made it very, very open and clear that they are enemies of the revolution in Niger. And the rest of Africa are standing by that revolution. The Nigerians are standing by that revolution. And now, ECOWAS, that is being controlled by the West, have taken side with the West, and they want to strangulate. So this fight will continue. It may not result anymore. Maybe it may not result anymore into active war. But this fight, this battle, or should I call it this Cold War that is going on, it will continue until it consumes the whole of Africa. And that is why those of us that are fighting for the restoration of Biafra, we cannot stop, because as we continue pushing this gospel, for our own freedom, other Africans are learning and they are pushing the gospel. Remember that Biafrans are everywhere in the world, and Biafrans are everywhere in Africa. Okay? When they are seeing you strive to make changes in your own locality, it gives light to them. It makes them know that they also need to stand up. They also need to stand up. They also do not need to continue being poor, being impoverished, and looking. You can imagine how many people die trying to cross the sea going to Europe from Africa. And do you know why they don't like talking about those number of people that died? Because by the time you begin to talk about them, they prefer to talk about the 5 billionaires, the 5 white billionaires that died. But the thousands of black people that died trying to cross the sea to Europe, they don't want to talk about it. It's very simple. The reason they don't want to talk about it is because if they do, then people will begin to ask, why will such number, massive number, be trying to leave the continent of Africa? What is happening in the continent of Africa? And the answer will be, they are looking for greener pastures in Europe. And the next question will be, does it mean that they cannot get jobs and have a reasonable life in their continent, in Africa? Then it will mean that people begin to look into Africa and ask questions. But so they know the end of that. That is why they use their media to suppress it. They don't want to talk about it. And Africans will still continue to go to Europe. And it's not their fault, because individually people must survive and people must make a living for themselves. Because your country is in bondage does not mean that you must die in abject poverty. So if you cannot have a life within your local space, you must move. It's not wrong in any way for them to move. You must move and find a place where you can have a reasonable life for yourself. Whether it is in the land of your enemies or it is in the land of your friends or whatever, it doesn't matter. Actually, I don't, I might mention enemies, but I don't particularly believe that any singular people, like the race of people, are my enemies or our enemies. It's just that some people are greedy, and we must be able to. It's not some people. Every man is greedy. Okay, all people are greedy. Human beings are usually greedy. Okay, but we as a people, we must look out for our own survival. We must look out for how we can make our own lives better. So this revolution that is going on in Africa is actually the revolution of economic freedom. To break, and if you see all the steps that are being taken by some of these revolutionary governments in West Africa, is to destroy the stranglehold of France, the economic stranglehold of France in their individual nations. Okay, to destroy that economic stranglehold so that they become the ones that are in charge of their countries. Like Niger now, they have appointed a prime minister that is that will be in charge of the economy of Niger. That is to tell you that those that plotted that coup, or more or less can call them the revolutionaries, those guys, they understand that what they are going through is actually economic strangulation. They understand that what they are going through is actually economic strangulation. Okay? And this economic strangulation, for them to come out of it, they must seek the help of experts. They must seek the help of experts if they must be able to come out of this economic strangulation. They cannot come out of economic strangulation just the way that some of those coup plotters in the zoo did, like the likes of Buhari, Abacha, and the rest of them, where they just took over power and without any education, without any knowledge of how to run economies, they just took over power and they just started giving laws and all that. They didn't have knowledge of how to run the economies. No knowledge, because all those coups in the zoo were actually orchestrated by the West, and they knew that these guys have nothing in their heads. They have nothing in their heads. They know nothing, so they pushed them to take over power, to take over the government, and run it down to what we have today. So, and it was also as a result of coups and coups and coups that made them to attack Biafra land. And we lost how many million people? About 3 million plus people. Some people are even saying that it's up to 5 million. Okay, so that is it. So our freedom, what we are fighting for in Biafra land, we are not just looking for political freedom, and that is why some people will tell you, but you have governors, but you have senators. Why don't you go to the House of Senate and all that? That is like, it is not the governors, the senators, and members of House of Assemblies in the zoo is the same thing as what the rest of Africa are facing. Okay, we don't need to just have governors and all of that. That is not what we need. Okay, that is not what we need. What we need is total freedom. We need a Biafra where we can have economic freedom. And if we are just on our own, there is no way we cannot have economic freedom. There's no way you can manipulate us. There's no way foreigners can manipulate us. Or there is no way corrupt people on our land can manipulate us. It is practically impossible. We are far smarter than that. It is practically impossible to manipulate us for us not to be able to have economic freedom. So that is why the West do not want Biafra. And unfortunately for them, what is happening is that as we are pushing, the more we are pushing for our own freedom, the more we are pushing for our freedom, the more the rest of Africa is being enlightened. So, as Africa is being free, is getting her freedom, even though I don't consider friendship outside Africa as total freedom. But at least it is a form of freedom. It's friendship with Russia and maybe China. At least the people have some certain level of voice for their own locality. Okay? So, but I don't consider it total freedom. I don't consider it total freedom. The total freedom is when Africans can only look for Africans for help. When we got united to the extent that the only place you can turn to for help is another African brother. An African brother nation that you can turn to for help. Then, as in, after you have tried to help yourself and you have issues, then you can turn to another African brother nation for help. If we put our things together, we don't even need all these, the IMF, the United Nations. If Africa is working for Africans, if Africa is working for Africans, we don't even need the rest of the world because we have all we need. They are the ones that need us. So, provided we keep pushing for the freedom of Biafra, because the freedom of Biafra, what pushed us into this is actually the economic freedom of Biafra. That is what pushed us into this. The economic freedom of Biafra is what pushed us into this. We are tired of this people that are put on our land, occupying our land in the name of governors, in the name of leaders of some sort. They have no power. No power whatsoever, because if you do not have economic power, you have no power. And because it is the culture of the Biafran people to produce, that is why you see that it has become a culture of the zoo to suppress Biafra. Most of what we are seeing, the systems of the zoo that we are seeing to suppress Biafra and Biafrans is not primarily the idea of the locals that we see. It is because these locals are listening, they are puppets of people outside of Africa. So in order for those people to continue milking Biafra land and the rest of the zoo, they must keep Biafra land in perpetual bondage. That is why Biafra land cannot be open. The seaports in Biafra land cannot be open. They cannot allow the seaports in Biafra land to be open. Why? Because if you allow the seaports in Biafra land to be open, naturally the Biafrans will produce. Biafrans will be productive. And before you know it, because when people are naturally productive, after a particular time, that external strangulation will be broken. It will be broken naturally because the people are naturally productive. So it becomes a policy of the zoo to ensure that you strangulate Biafra land economically. You must understand this, that it is a policy in the zoo to strangulate Biafra land economically. They will not allow you to use your brain for your own land. They will not allow you to use your brain to produce for your own people. If you are discovered that you are a genius, that you can produce this and you can produce that, they will find a way to frustrate it. We know how much they try to frustrate Innocent. But Innocent was lucky that at the time that he was rising, it was also a Biafran that was president. So he was given that help to stand. Now he's standing, they cannot do anything about it. And because he's already standing, now they are taking advantage of it, using him to build armored tankers that they are sending to go and kill our people in Biafra land. Innocent is building most of these armored tankers. Many of them are not gotten from the West. So right now they are using it. But when he wanted to start, the first time he tried to start, they tried to suppress it. And Innocent is just one among many other talented people that can produce and produce more of these things. So it is a policy in the zoo to economically strangulate Biafra land. That is why all the seaports in Biafra land are not allowed to work. Trains, by right, there should have been a train from Lagos to Biafra land, so that people can stay in Biafra land, do their businesses, and take it down from Lagos to Biafra land, since the seaports in Biafra land are not working. But no, they will not build it. They will rather build it maybe from Biafra land, somewhere in Biafra land to the north, maybe from Lagos to the north. Everything should be directed to the north, okay? That leads it to Niger. So it must be pushed away from Biafra land. That is the system. That is how they operate. And this system, you must understand that this system is following the same system that they are operating for the rest of Africa. The economic strangulation for the rest of Africa. And once you can break that economic strangulation in Biafra land, if you can succeed in breaking it in Biafra land, you have broken it in the whole of Africa. That is why I say that Biafra is a significant ingredient in Africa's freedom. Because what Africa needs right now is economic freedom. So if you can break this economic strangulation in Biafra land, if you succeed in breaking economic strangulation in Biafra land, you will break economic strangulation in the rest of Africa. But the way Elohim is doing it now, it seems like since they have become too stubborn to let Biafra go, Elohim wants to free the whole of Africa so that they will have no reason to hold Biafra land anymore. Elohim wants to take the whole of Africa away from their hands. And subsequent times we are going to be seeing it. Just take note. More countries will be falling to the hands of the East, more countries in Africa. To Russia, maybe China, and they'll be cutting ties with the West. Fully cutting ties, not like the way some of them are doing. They are relating with this one, they are relating with this one, they are relating both ways. No, fully cut ties with the West and say that we have no business with you again. You can imagine what is France, what is the army of France doing in Niger? And they ask you to leave, you say no. You want to fight them? They say that they don't need you. You want to kill them in their own land? Is it by force to do business with you? You must tell them how they will run their government. So why don't France return power to the monarchy of France? When the people of France chose, there was a revolution in France. This same France that is crying and say that you must bring those people, the legitimate. You, Macron, are you the legitimate leader of France? Are you legitimate leader of France? Are you the king of France? France used to have king. If you're saying that Niger should bring back legitimate rulers, you should vacate office and go and look for the descendants of the former king of France and put in power. Of course, because you two, you will not be legitimate. Because you are there because your people want you there. So if these people are there because the people want them there, then they should be there. They are the legitimate. Because France went through a revolution that destroyed their monarchy. And that's why they have presidents. And that's why they have elections to change president, change power, change administrations. So if you can do it in France, why can't people in other places do it? The people are rejoicing, so that is the will of the people. Democracy is supposed to be of the people, a system that is of the people. So if the people approves it, then that's fine. If the people are on the street celebrating it, then that is fine. It is when the people are frowning at it, that is when it is an issue. But the people are celebrating it. So it means that what you have there is a revolution. It's not a coup. It's a revolution. In France, it was called a revolution, but in Niger, it is called a coup. When the people stood up in France and took out the king of France and killed him, the Nigerians didn't even kill these leaders. They took out the king of France and killed him and started ruling themselves. Now you're talking about legitimate. It is only in Europe the people have a say. You can do what you want to do. But in Africa, it is European leaders that must decide what happens in Africa, what is legitimate, what is not legitimate, who is right and who is wrong. But when you make laws that should guide the whole world, when certain Africans break it, Buhari broke that law. And Tinubu have not made any change because he has been there. He can call for war against Niger, but he cannot release Mazi and Kanu. He can put up sanctions against Niger, cut off power supply against Niger, but he cannot release Mazi and Kanu. Buhari, with the rest of the APC junta, could rig elections and get into power with evidence that everybody could see. And you recognize that government. You did not call the government of Buhari an illegitimate government. No. But the revolution in Niger is illegitimate because they are not submissive to France. If the revolutionaries in Niger had submitted to France and allowed France to continue, France wouldn't have bothered. ECOWAS wouldn't have bothered. They wouldn't have complained about what is happening there. So we must understand that the economic strangulation in Biafra land that we are experiencing within Biafra land is the same economic strangulation all over Africa. And the freedom, the economic freedom of Biafrans, because the restoration of Biafra would mean the economic freedom of Biafra. Because there is Biafra, we have people, the Fulani people are not the ones holding power in Biafra land, even though the zoo is still overshadowing everything, and they still have to bow to the zoo, but at least they are not the ones holding power in Biafra land. Neither is it Britain that is holding power in Biafra land. They are not the governors, not the senators, not the members of the House of Assembly, not the ministers or commissioners or what have you. So it looks as if there is political freedom, but there is no economic freedom. There's no freedom of the people. The people don't have say. So what we need the restoration of Biafra so that we can go to operating the way we used to operate before the white man came here, before the colonial era, before the creation of the zoo called Nigeria. So at this moment, we shall be opening the lines. If you have calls, if you have a contribution to this, you can call us. If you have a contribution to this, you can call and give your own contribution. Okay, the lines are open. Before we round up and call it a day, The line to call, you can only call us on Signal. It's only a Signal, it's a Signal line. So it is +49 173 52 750 73. +49 173 52 750 73. So if you're calling for the first time, if you've not called before, if you're calling for the first time, you should know that we are going to, I'll have to accept you first. After accepting you, then we can take your calls. So I'll take it one more time, +49 173 52 750 73. So we just have very few minutes to take calls. You just have few minutes to take calls. If after a while the calls are not coming, we can just round up the program until on Friday. Okay, so this program, Voice of the Coast, we are going to be having it every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. If you looked at the flyers, you can see that Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and by 2 p.m. Biafran time. Today we were a little bit late, but on Friday we will not be. We will be early, and if I will not be coming up any of these days, I will announce it on my platform on Facebook. Okay, I will announce it if I won't be coming up. If I won't be coming up on radio, so I will announce it. But I will also be announcing the topics. Okay, but understand that we are coming live every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 3 times in the week. We will be coming live on this same platforms that you are listening to us from. Okay, so it's very important that you take note of that. So 2 p.m. Biafran time. So you adjust your timing based on where you are in the world. You can adjust your time and follow suit. Okay, and make sure you share this broadcast so that those that were not able to listen to it at this particular time can still be able to listen to it later on. They will be able to listen to it later on. Okay, so we must continue. We must continue. If you want to call and give your contribution, you are free to do so. So it is important. It is important that we understand that what Biafrans are going through, even though the other Africans may not understand, but we that are Biafrans, we understand what we are going through. Many people may not understand what is going on within the zoo. It's when you discuss with some other Africans beyond the zoo, they are confused. They don't really get it. They don't really get why you want freedom. They don't understand, except those of them that have been following us on the radio. Those of them that have been following us on these platforms. They don't really get it. They don't understand why we are doing what we're doing. They don't understand why we are saying that we need freedom. But you already belong to Nigeria. So why do you need freedom from Nigeria? Are you in bondage with your fellow African brothers? Okay, so it is quite difficult for them to understand. Okay, even knowing that yes, in Biafra land and the states in Biafra land, it is people from Biafra land that rule in those or that occupy those positions, and yet we still complain. We still say that we are being marginalized. We still say that the army is killing us whenever we protest, and all of that. And sometimes some of these governors still join the oppressors to encourage the killing of our people. And some people will be wondering, oh, if the governors are in support of the government of the zoo, if the state governors in Biafra land are in support of the government of the zoo, then it means, you see, this is how people think, and the oppressors have designed this system. They know how people think normally. So the mindset is that if there's governors, if there was a problem, the governors should have been the first people to shout, to complain, because they are the leaders of their people. That is how people think normally. So that they are the leaders of their people. They should have been the first people to complain about it. So if the governors are not complaining, if the governors are actually in support of this, then it means that you that is an individual that holds no political position, that you are the problem. And they'll be like, if you think these governors are not good, why did you vote them? You see, so these things are complex, and we out there, we're feeling the pain, but people outside may not understand what we're talking about, may not understand the pain. So, but we know that it is a system, and the system is strong. When people get involved in that system, they just can't speak. They can't speak against it, and the wicked ones will just want to have peace. Peace without justice. You know, when you want to have peace in the midst of injustice, then it means that you're an evil person. Why? You do not care about progress. You just want to have peace. Why you see some of these governors in Biafra land fight against the freedom of their people is because they want to have peace without justice. You will not see them call for openly. I'm not talking about the secret talks. Secret talk is fine, but openly calling for the freedom of Mazi and the Kanu, you will not see them do that. But you will see them mobilize strongly. Strongly, they'll be mobilizing against any form of uprising or against anybody that is speaking against the zoo. They'll be very strong. Call the army, call the police, kill them, arrest them, put them behind bars and all that. But the injustice that is going on, no, you don't want to tackle it. So these are the things that we face. But people outside do not understand what we're going through. But with what the zoo is doing to Niger now, other Africans, I believe they must have started thinking and getting to understand what we Biafrans, I mean those that are a little bit aware, those that are a little bit aware, and not just Africans, people all over the world that are following up with the events of our activities. Some of them must have started on getting to understand why we are doing what we're doing, why we need this freedom. Some of them must have started to understand it. Okay? Because you cannot, in the midst of injustice, be saying that you want peace. Okay? It's not like I am not against peace. Okay? I'm not against peace. I'm a lover of peace. Anybody that knows me from when I was a child till this time knows that I don't like trouble. I'm not a troublemaker. But I don't run away from it. I don't make troubles. But I don't run away from it when that trouble came as a result of injustice. Anybody that knows me knows that. I don't run away from trouble that is born out of injustice. Except the trouble is just there. We should avoid any form of trouble, but not when that trouble, if you avoid it, injustice will prevail. No. Justice must prevail first before you're talking about peace. You must settle the issues of justice. You must settle the issues of justice. But these guys, they don't want that. They just want their rule, their 4 years and their 8 years to just go freely so that they can steal as much money they want, because all they got there to do is to steal. Nobody in the zoo is going to get power because they want to make the lives of people better. No. No one is going there because they want to make the lives of people better. That is why they can spend as much as possible to get those positions. They can spend as much as they can to get hold of those positions because it's a lucrative business. It's investment. Any money they are spending during election, paying touts to kill people, paying touts to scare people away, all these things are investments. When they get into power, they will get them in 10 to 20 fold. So it's nothing. If they get the power, it becomes nothing. And that is why, because all of them are into this business. All these politicians, they are into this business. So when all of them strive, when they strive and they see that, okay, this one I've gotten the power, then the other ones will now lay back and begin to look out for, okay, since you've gotten the power, what can you settle me with? Is it with contract? Is it with this? At least what I invested, let me be able to gain it back. So when you see them spend so much money in elections to deceive people, to manipulate people, they are doing all these things because they are investing. It is an investment. And the returns are massive. So when they get into positions like this, they don't want you to begin to start talking about freedom. Why do you want to start talking about freedom at this time? They don't want that. They don't want you to start talking about freedom. Because once you start talking about freedom, any talk that leads to you talking about freedom, then it means that they will now begin to want to look at justice. And when you want to look at justice, the other people will not agree. The people that actually put our people in that bondage will not agree. And when they do not agree, and we insist, they will come and they will kill, and there will be chaos everywhere. When we insist that no, we must stand our grounds, this is what we want, there will be chaos. And when there is chaos in that manner, the person that wants to steal peacefully may not, he can continue stealing, but the stealing will no longer be peaceful. So all he's interested in is let there be peace within his locality so that I can steal peacefully like others have done for 4 years, for 8 years, and I go. So that is why you will not see them try to make sure that injustice doesn't prevail. All they want is to calm everything down so that they can steal peacefully. So they do not represent our interest in whatever form. They do not. Governors, or they don't represent our interest. Not all of them are wicked people, are bad people. Some of them are not so wicked, but all of them are selfish. You know, it's not everybody that is selfish that is wicked. Some people are not so wicked. They are not very wicked people, but they have learned to think of themselves alone. They don't want to think of others. For you to be a freedom fighter, you must have defeated selfishness. Some of us are not thinking of ourselves at all. If we are, we'll not be doing this because it is coming at a very high cost. We will not be doing this. You will not take all your time to be educating people, to be talking about what is going on and try to enlighten people. If you're thinking of yourself alone, if you're thinking of, oh, how do I just for myself develop? How do I just improve on myself alone? So you have to be selfless. But these guys, they are not cut out for that, to be selfless. They're not cut out for that, to begin to think of others. All they want is themselves, their power, and their rule. So many of them wish that Biafran land is free. They wish, but they are not ready to pay the price that comes with freedom. Because as a governor, you begin to stand up for the freedom of your people, then all the powers that are fighting against our people will be pointed towards you. And mostly if you're now alone, because if all the 5 governors of the Southeast and the 6 governors of the South stand up together and speak in one voice, that voice will be powerful and it will re-echo. But such a thing is not going to happen because many of them are not there for the people. So they cannot agree. So in fact, the first one that is thinking of that is thinking, if I introduce it to this person will say, oh, this person will link, will go and betray me and tell somebody outside. Will go and tell the president that I am the one instigating these people to do all this. And everything will be channeled against me. So instead, let us all fight it together. So that is what is going on. That is what the Biafran people have got to face. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that the people remain resolute. The people remain strong. The people remain focused. The people keep hitting the message. The people keep protesting in whatever forms. Like I would say, however form that you can protest, you should protest. Protest is not only when you carry placards on the streets and you roam the streets. There are different ways in which you can protest. Okay, protest isn't just when you carry placards and roam the streets. For the zoo to now carry their army and police, they will now stand as if they are the battlefront and be shooting armless people that are not carrying any weapons whatsoever, and be shooting them live bullets. Not that they will be shooting in the air, but they'll be shooting directly and be shooting live bullets and be killing people and be seizing their bodies. When they kill these people, they will not leave them there. They will kill them and be seizing their bodies. Like till today, those people that were killed in Aba, we know nothing about them. We know nothing about, we know about them actually, but many of them, their bodies we've not seen. And some people were telling lies that, oh, this person is still alive. People that died, that we saw that they fell by the gun, they fell by bullets, live bullets of the zoo army. We saw them how they fell. And some people were telling lies that they're alive. Where are they today? Anybody that is alive will come out to speak and say, I'm alive. Where are they today if they are alive? The Abia State Coordinator, who is from Akwa Ibom State, which is coastal part of Biafra, is dead and gone. He's dead and gone. Some people were saying that he's alive somewhere. He's not. They killed him there. The zoo army killed him in cold blood because he came out protesting for the freedom of Mazi and Kanu. He was killed, gunned down, and his body was seized. His family till now does not have his body. Whether they buried him somewhere in a shallow grave, nobody knows. This is what our people are facing, and he's not the only one that died that day. Many others died. They went after them, chasing them and killing them while they are running. And the world is quiet. Nobody is saying anything. Nobody is saying anything. Dead and gone because they protested. So you must not protest with placards on the streets, but there are different ways to protest. The protest must continue. You must protest. Okay? There are different ways to protest. Even talking on the radio like we're doing is a form of protest. People all over the world in different countries should as well be protesting. There you can carry placards. Outside the zoo, you can carry placards, provided you discuss with the security of the place, or you can carry placards and get on the streets. We're not supposed to stay calm. to the extent that people begin to forget whether Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is in the hands of the zoo. You think people cannot forget? People can forget. Human beings have very short memories. When you're not doing anything, they will forget. So while people in Biafra land can do whatever they want to do to protest, people outside should continue, one way or the other, continue to protest, carry placard. Because one thing is this: when you protest outside like that, it is just to pass that information and make sure that the pressure continues. There is a way this protest all over the world will continue. It will continue. People will be forced, other people will be forced to begin to talk about it. Other people will be forced to begin to talk about it. So that is just how it is. Thank you very much for listening, and at this moment we shall be calling it a day. This is Biafra Radio. My name is Kimiowei Tari Nemi, and I am your host for today. And we must continue tomorrow, next tomorrow, which is Friday by 2 p.m. Biafran time. I will be here as well, and we must continue preaching this gospel. What the topic will be at that time, I will announce it. Okay, but even if you do not see any announcement, know that we shall be here again on Friday. We shall be here again on Monday, and we shall continue Wednesday like that, 3 times every week. If I will be coming live, apart from these times that I'm announcing, apart from these days and apart from these times, I will also make that clear. Okay, maybe an emergency broadcast or something. I'll also make it clear that I'm coming live on air at these particular times. So I will make that clear on my page on Facebook. So thank you for listening, and continue the good work. We must never give up. We must never faint. We must never drag feet. We must never allow the enemy to subdue us into silence. Thank you very much, and God bless you.